this evening to the work session, which is a review of our capital projects that are taking place. There are basically three items on the agenda. Having to do with Palmer School Project, Cheston School Project, and then a summary of the various other capital projects that are moving forward. I'll first ask Mr. Reinhardt, is there anything that you need to update us on?
Just to mention that as the agenda states that we're going to have a bit of a delay in moving forward, and we have to return our plans to the Palmer Planning Commission, and we hope to do that next month. The rest, actually, from that point forward, I think we can rely on our engineers to help us through the business at Cheston.
Mr. Fatal, as Chairman of Buildings and Grounds, you want to move this forward then?
Is there any other comments, John, from you about Palmer?
No, as Mr. Reinhardt had mentioned, we were in front of the Planning Commission again last night, and that approval was tabled for another month. There are some pending stormwater off-site improvements that need to be worked out. So at this point, pending that approval, they could not give the formal recommendation to me or the supervisors. So we will get with our design engineers, with Randy's consultants, and with the district and see what can be done. It's a pretty difficult situation that we're trying to resolve out there. So hopefully we can make some headway within the next month.
As far as all the other details, Green Pond Road, the parking, the commission's fine with all that?
There still does need to be an improvements agreement drafted with the township. Not uncommon to draft a developers or improvements agreement. The items that we do need to make sure are picked up and clarified in that agreement are the cost sharing and the partnership with the township as far as Green Pond road widening and some of the other off-site improvements. So again, until the Planning Commission offers their recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, we're not prepared at this point to finalize that agreement.
But I mean, they were fine with everything else?
They were fine with the plans, with exception to the one big issue related to the off-site stormwater. Yeah.
Will that be one fell swoop whenever everything gets resolved as part of the agreement?
The all of the points that need to be incorporated into the agreement, I would imagine, would be one document. There won't be that will be approved at one point. There will be maybe some revisions along the way that need to be discussed, but one final approval.
I don't know if I'm as confident that all the other aspects of that thing, our plan, are going to be approved yet. I'll just say that. I'm not sure that I would say I would agree to that observation. I don't know, Michael. Do you think? I mean, we spent our time on the one particular aspect, but.
I think our biggest issue is the remaining stormwater relief. I think they did say during the meeting that from an engineering standpoint, they're okay with everything. It's just that the property and that final stormwater runoff.
Yeah, there's an easement that needs to be had in order to make this final connection. So that really was the biggest talking point as far as having the approval tabled.
Yeah. Biggest objection.
Other questions on Palmer before we move on? Okay, let's move on to Cheston.
Okay. Mr. Galliotto is here as well from Alloy, so depending on what some of the questions might be, we can defer to him. So for Cheston, I just wanted to update everybody on the upcoming bidding and award schedule. Along with that, just for some of the new members maybe who haven't gone through the process yet, the way it works with bidding is we have to have multiple prime contracts. prime contract is something that's held directly with the school district. In Pennsylvania, we have to have at least 4 prime contractors. For the case of Cheston, we actually need a 5th, which includes the asbestos abatement. So we'll have 5 prime contractors, which go from general, HVAC, electrical, mechanical, and abatement. And from there, they will have subcontractors who do not have a contract with the district, but with those prime contractors. So what we'll do is on March 5th, we invite everybody to a pre-bid meeting. With the public bidding arena, the project must be advertised for 3 consecutive weeks. So that is in the process now of being in the paper, and pretty much anybody can respond to that bid. Obviously, we have qualifications that need to be met for contractors, who's eligible and qualified to put in a bid. But it's an advertised project, and any contractor is welcome to come and offer their bid and offer their qualifications. So the bids will be due as of right now on March 29th. What that's going to allow us to do is to review the bids, the numbers, the alternate recommendations at the committee meetings April 3rd and April 11th. I'm projecting April 11th as the date for this particular setting, with April 3rd being the standing committee meeting. So we'll have an opportunity to get back in front of the board after bids are received, but before the formal board approval, which will be at the board meeting on April 17th. Okay, so if there are any pending questions related to scope or alternates, like I said, we can hash them out ahead of time. So at this point, Alloy 5 and their team are finalizing the technical aspects of the drawings and specs. Dewey, as the construction manager, we're in the final stages of the site phasing and logistics plans. They really have more to do with how the site will continue to operate while it's under construction. So Andrew and myself, we've been in touch with Mr. Yanders. We met with Joe Morrow, who's the city engineer, just today actually on site, talked about how the city maybe can help us if there would happen to be the case of a street shutdown, of a lane shutdown, a sidewalk closure, that type of thing. The city is very agreeable to helping us out where needed as far as making those types of accommodations happen. Also, there were some additional geotechnical investigations that have been completed. Some of that work was waiting for some more of the building design and layout to be completed. So I do want to touch on that because there is a little bit of a budget impact with that. So I'll go to the next slide. The geotechnical information is extremely important because it helps with a bunch of different items related to not only the building structure and what it's built on, but the infiltration aspect. You just heard about some of the difficulties we're having in Palmer related to stormwater improvements. So the geotechnical aspects can also relate to that. Good news is at Cheston, from a stormwater perspective, the soil is in very good condition as far as being able to handle some of the water that would otherwise be directed into the city's stormwater system. So what we did, we had the geotechnical engineer perform an additional survey that helped to identify other voids and soft material in the site. Okay, and again, that's extremely important to know up front because we want to identify it now rather than in the construction phase. So ultimately, what is being recommended is in the building footprint itself, what has been recommended is some additional soil export, some soil undercuts, and replacement with clean stone, which is much more suitable for the building pad structure, and also some pockets of what's called compaction grouting. Those types of things weren't clearly identified based on the preliminary geotechnical that was done, which was more related to overall soil condition down to bedrock, and also for the stormwater. So with this extra phase of geotech, there was some additional work that was identified. It will be identified in the bidding documents, again, so that it will have the most competitive number in order to rectify the situation. We're projecting a budget impact of approximately $500,000 for that site development budget line item. Again, it's something that is needed, obviously. So what I'm going to do is show you an updated budget comparison. We broke it down into categories between the prime contracts and also the site work and soft costs. The column which is indicated Act 34, if you remember, there was a public hearing for both the Cheston and the Palmer projects. That is required as part of the public construction work. So as part of the Act 34 hearing, there was a total project cost number of $32,171,000. Okay, so that was sort of a formal, board-approved number. After the Act 34 meeting and the final development of the documents, and also with the adjustment of this geotechnical work, we're now projecting a total project cost. Again, this is a budget number. This is not a fixed number. This is not a guaranteed number of $33,144,105. So ultimately, there's a net increase from that Act 34 number of $973,000. Again, this is budget projection. Hopefully conservative with some of these line items, but we did want to make the board aware of that moving into the bidding phase. So I mentioned the term alternates a few times in the previous slides. We'll talk about alternates and how they can help sort of keep certain budget considerations in check. I also do want to say that number does carry a contingency of $1 million. Okay, so there could potentially be a way to still keep it within that Act 34 number. We don't recommend going into a project of this nature, of this size, not holding any contingency amount. So bid alternates, what are they? The contractors will be bidding on a certain defined scope, which is put together by the architect and his consultants. They will provide a number, a base bid number. So that's essentially for this defined scope of work. Tell me how much it's going to take for your company to build this project. That's the base bid. There are alternates which identify other scope items that can be added to or deducted from that base bid scope. Sometimes for a school it might be a free classroom addition, it might be an alternate flooring type, it might be an alternate roofing type. So what it does is it allows some flexibility of scope. It can adjust factors that can affect the cost, the schedule. So those are the types of things that those two meetings in April before the board meeting, we can talk about, what is the impact on cost, what is the impact on finishes, long-term life cycle cost types of things. So we'll talk about the alternates, obviously, as we get closer to the bid. Tonight, we did want to introduce what the projected alternates are for Cheston, just in case any board members did have any other ideas, any thoughts as far as, hey, I thought we talked about this, did you consider that we can still incorporate them as alternates into the bidding documents, obviously, before we get the bid. So I don't know that we need to hit on every one of these. I can certainly make this document available to the board. Some of these are very technical in nature as far as it gets down to electrical circuits and how they're constructed. Those types of things are more of a cost savings measure than anything that the district or the occupants would actually interact with or sense with on a day-to-day basis. But briefly, I did want to let everybody know that we are looking at alternate roofing construction. Those are cost-driven items. We would like to stick with what's called a built-up asphalt roof. It's a very robust roofing system. So we've got two roofing alternates. We've got one that takes it from a 20-year system up to a 30-year warranted system, so it actually beefs the system up. The other one, which is a cost savings measure, would be for a single ply rubber roof. Okay, so it's a completely different roofing system. Not uncommon for schools, but not as robust as what the base bid roof would be. Again, that's purely a cost savings alternate. We have other alternates identified for floor finishes. In the base bid, we have terrazzo flooring, which is a beautiful flooring, very durable, very low life cycle costs, but higher upfront costs to install. So again, as a cost savings measure on bid day, we have some alternates to continue VCT, which is the 12 by 12 vinyl tile, into the corridors, not just the classrooms, but the corridors as well. Okay, so the flooring alternates would affect the cafeteria and the corridors. We've got a few of those identified. In the classrooms, again, as far as finishes go, there are a couple alternates for materials, one of which is to provide a plastic laminate countertop type instead of a solid surface. Solid surface countertops are what were installed at Paxinosa, extremely durable, really good resistance to water, and I think we know with little kids, washing their hands or such, getting a drink. At the casework, you certainly want something that is going to hold up to the water drops. So again, base bid would be like a chlorine solid surface with alternates for plastic laminate. That would be both at the countertops and also the windowsill along the exterior wall. Okay. There's a brick alternate. I think Randy might have touched on that last meeting as part of the reference book. An alternate brick type. Again, that's somewhat of a cost savings alternate. We have a divider curtain identified for the gym, something that the committee at the time didn't really say for sure. We absolutely need it. We absolutely don't need it. And we said, hey, let's get a price for it if it makes sense to put it in. Allows you some flexibility with cutting off the gym halfway. We can make that decision at a later point. So that's something that would be an owner-driven item. Some of the other items that the district would, be aware of or interact with are some of the in the hallways. And I'll show you an image of this. There are some tall storage cabinets that were added for additional storage, maybe that could even be shared across different classrooms. This, again, is a cost savings measure to delete those cabinets and just continue the wall finish through there. We're hoping that we don't have to do that because I think that's useful space. I know that it's in use at Shawnee, and it's certainly something that we want to be kept. But again, just to give it the best shot as far as keeping the budget. We've been very successful up to this point with the previous projects. From a budget perspective, we just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that the following projects come in where we want them to be as well. One that we do want to talk about, and I've got a slide for this, has to do with the perimeter fence around the play area. This, again, was another item that was a subject of much discussion in the prior meetings as far as, do we need a fence? Do we want a fence? How high should it be? What should it look like? Okay, so we'll have an alternate that can address those types of questions. And another one is, when the new building is constructed, we typically do this for a new school building, is in place of seeded grass, to make it nice and green and finished day one, we have an alternate for sod, so that, if people are cutting corners or, otherwise getting off the beaten path, that they're not in mud, and also just the appearance of the finished product, I think, is much better with a nice green layer of sod instead of grass that is yet to come up. Okay, so those are the types of things we can talk about. Again, mechanically, electrically, it's not very exciting stuff. We have some systems alternates, including fire alarm by a certain vendor to match what's currently in the district, and some other items, again, that are more of a cost-driven approach for mechanical and electrical. Okay. Any questions so far on that?
I have a question about the soil. When you talk about voids, are you talking about sinkholes?
Not sinkholes, but they are, they're areas within the bedrock that are either loose or could potentially be a sinkhole. They're not currently sinkholes.
Right.
The compaction grouting involves something that's driven into the ground, and it injects a grout material that helps to compact and fill in those types of voids. That is not going to be throughout the entire area. This survey identified certain pockets. I think there were about 3 pockets on the site that would fall under that condition that needed to be addressed. Okay, so again, just touching on that, one of the finish alternates has to do with the cafeteria floor. Again, the base bid would be terrazzo. If you've been through Paxinosa, you would see the kitchen floor is a seamless vinyl flooring system. It's not a 12 by 12 tile. It's on a roll. It's very durable, and it has much fewer seams that you would see. We think it's a really nice product, and actually Alloy looked at extending that out from the kitchen throughout the entire cafeteria. Okay, so that would be one of the alternates related to the floor finish type, going from terrazzo to something a little bit more affordable up front. Same with the corridors. Again, this is from the reference book. If in your free time at home, you can thumb through the reference books that were handed out. You can see the nice floor tile or flooring patterns. Again, that would be with terrazzo, and the cost savings would be to go to an alternate material in the corridors. We talked about the casework and the countertop and windowsill materials, and I just wanted to again show you the image of what we're talking about. It would be the countertop along that section of casework to the left of the image, and then the windowsill at the exterior wall on the right. I think we did that for Paxinosa. We found there really wasn't that great of a savings that would justify going away from that more durable material, but we just, again, wanted to take another look at it for these upcoming projects. One of the other accents, really nice features that Alloy incorporated into the design. If you remember Randy describing walking down a city street, on the sidewalk, what are some of the things that the students see and interact with on their way to school? So that's the flooring pattern, how that kind of mimics the sidewalk and the street, and also the millwork, which is woodwork at the classroom intersections. As of right now, really nice design incorporating a tree, like a street tree. So the types of things that are, very nice to have, but do come with a certain dollar amount. So again, making sure that we can do anything we can to keep the budget where it needs to be. That was one of the items that we said, hey, why don't we just see if there's something we can do to make this more simple, to delete some of the more ornamental work involved with that millwork. All right, the site fence. So I took the site plan, and in the red outline, you can see the outline of, as of right now, what's proposed to be site fencing. The 2 sections at the top edge, the section on the left is the kindergarten play area, and the section, that little stubby section on the right, would be simply to cut off access into that courtyard area. Obviously not the best supervision if somebody were to be hiding in that area. So those 2 up top, and then down at the bottom around what is currently the Cheston school footprint. For the new play area, for the new open space, there is a perimeter fence identified around that area. I know that it's something that Mr. Yanders does support, at least in some version, with having some deterrent from people walking dogs, even from students who might be out at recess and decide they don't want to be in school anymore that day and want to take off. So I think the consensus at the time had been there should be some type of perimeter fencing. We had kicked around some ideas with height. Should it be 4 feet? Should it be 6 feet? Should it be 8 feet? And also the type. Is it an ornamental fence, more like a picket style fence, or is it a chain link fence? Paxinosa, we did a black coated chain link fence, and we did brick pier accents, which I think came out fine. But again, we just wanted the board to have some flexibility with what the material would be, what the look would be. So I think I would, tonight at least, we would like to have some direction that we can take back to the consultants, because as they are finalizing these bid documents, these are the types of things that need to be clearly identified for the bidders. Material selection, height, those types of things. Okay? So as of right now, as of tonight, the base bid fence is an ornamental fence at a 4-foot height.
What is there now? How tall is that now?
Well, so on the other side, which is where the new building would be, there is a perimeter fence. It's like an 8-foot fence, chain link.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that an important difference here is this is at the front of the school. So we'll be seeing a fence letting up to the front of the school versus today on the side of the aisle.
This is something Randy's very passionate about, so I'm going to turn it over.
Yeah, Randy, I'd like to know your opinion.
It's all my fault. I'm the one that kind of hit the pause button on this topic. I think the committee vetted it for a long time, and everyone understands the importance of it. But what we have here is the front door of the building. And when you think about this in a way that you can't really see it now, and you consider the topography, realize the corner of Grant and Cole, the Grant and Cole, the bottom right hand corner is actually up. It's going to be up like 12 feet. So it's a big hillside there. The corner on Reynolds by the bus loop is really the area where it becomes easily accessible from the sidewalk to the park. And the vision of creating the school this way was really to continue to have that big green space like Pioneer Field is now in the middle of the neighborhood. And we're certainly going to have that, but it's the front lawn. So I fear fencing that in could look very, prison-like, or certainly not as appropriate. Think about Paxinosa. We fenced in the backyard there, and it worked, and we did it with a chain link fence. But imagine if you do that in the front of Paxinosa along Northampton Street, and what that would sort of have, tell the story it would tell to the community. So I hit the pause button here. I want everyone to think about it, and I think the right move is to do some where Reynolds Street is, where it's more flat. Do maybe some things with some bushes, and maybe a decorative fence there, and leave the rest of the place open, so it remains park-like within the neighborhood. It's my 2 cents. But understanding the importance of something to stop balls from going out onto the street and people from just running through.
Randy, could you like a rendering of what it would look? I mean, we're looking at this, and so you really sort of
It's
don't
hard
have
to
an idea of
picture.
what it would.
We had some. I don't think it is. We did some images early on. We should have brought them today.
Okay. My next question is where the red goes. Is that the walkway that goes through? Are we talking about fencing off at each end of the walkway?
Okay, so the top two in the green, there's the 2 red fences.
Yes.
The one to the left is the kindergarten, first grade play
No,
area.
I mean the
She
middle.
needs the middle wall.
The middle walkway.
Oh, the middle
where
walkway.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. So that's that pedestrian walkway that we created.
So are we talking about fencing that?
We're talking about having 2 gates down at the bottom of that, and then the fence would just kind of wrap around, go around the site. I think Josh stole the pointer again.
I offered you one.
I know.
Make you have questions.
Just wondering what the plan is for that space when school is not in session, if it's going to be, I mean, obviously if there's no fence, then it'll be just completely open to anyone at any hour of.
And I think Pioneer Park now is open
Yeah.
to anyone at any hour.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think about the dogs going in there and everything else, and do they clean up, and at the same time, then the next day you're going to have kids in there, and you don't want to have staff out doing it. The other thing is, if you want to do that, for security when the kids are out there playing, have the fence there and let the gates open at night. Now, I don't know about the more you think about it, you're right, about the fence coming up right against the building there, come back onto the side of the walkway where the people go in, so it looks like it's really, that is a play area. So it lets the walkway from the left-hand side of your drawing to the right-hand side open. People can walk through there, it never gets closed off. But the fence goes out there behind where you have the flagpole and all, and let that be closed off so it protects the play area where the students are going into. Now, personally, I mean, we've heard different comments about it. If you put a 4-foot or you just put bushes in, anybody can come through and go right in. If you 6 foot, 8 foot, I mean, there's a reason they did that in some of the other places. The worst thing is, you're right, it's in the front of the building. But are we worried about the front of the building, or are we worried about the safety?
Yeah, it's along the front of the building at March, for example. Now, when you're looking at it, you can see it off. You can see the fence. It looks nice. It's not.
That's more of an ornamental as compared to the chain link.
Right,
So,
right, yeah.
So, I mean, I'll say that I stepped into not too long ago in front of Shawnee Elementary School. But you're never going to stop that. Dogs are, people are just going to be that way with open space and public. Again, I think we're really talking about, and I'll point here, this area here, because this area up top is sloped anyway. So you have a spot here that'll be open, and then along Railroad Street. These guys will be here no matter what. It's the right decision there.
I'm not for a chain link look type jail look, like I'm just saying.
I think that is troublesome to. I'm somewhat confused there with the fence. Am I right in saying that the thought is the fence goes right to the building, right there?
There's 2 gates. There's a gates here and a gate here, and they're 8 feet wide or 10 feet wide to 11 because they have to let a vehicle through.
That's what I'm saying. Bring it across more like here. And put the fence in, and don't even bring it up there. Then you have some green space in front of the school. You have.
Yeah, I agree with that. Don't go all the way up there.
But it's
This is a walkway.
Yep, it's a walkway.
So they
Yeah.
can
What's what are these? Are these grass or concrete?
Grass.
Grass, so you have.
Right to the flag, or
Flag
whatever
here.
that is. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So bring it or stops it, I don't know, cut it across.
Cut it.
Correct.
that way you have some green in front of the school. The fence isn't right up against the building or anything.
I mean, I think that's definitely.
And I think you get prices different ways. You go, you get the 60,
Those two angle sidewalks.
change it, or you get a
You gotta look at pictures, I think, to really see what it's gonna look
And I do
like.
like the way that they did the pillars down,
Me too.
right? And then use the chain link in between.
I'm okay with that, that's at least ornamental, something. Gotta break it up.
I think they have the pillars.
Yeah, but figure out the different alternatives that you can use to help, manage the cost.
Randy, is there a way for us to, because where we're looking to fence that in on that side, or we're not fenced in, but that's where the current Cheston building is. Is there a way for us to not do it until after that building is leveled, and then we can assess it, we'll be able to see it?
I think we certainly can write it that way, where that
So that
alternate
it's-
can last. You can make those decisions.
That way we can see it in real life to say, do a fence or
We could
don't.
not do any fence down there, and after
Right.
the building's down, we
Then
can
we can make a
put out another
decision.
proposal or bid.
That's
Yeah,
what
that's what I'm-
Alyssa suggested.
That's a great idea.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, me too.
You know-
we don't need a fence, I mean.
But the only difference is, we do have the contractors there that are going to be doing the concrete and brickwork and everything, it's not part of it. Then when they bid later, if they're off-site, your price
Yeah,
wise.
it will.
Well, so let me just say, I think that the brick column, that taxonosis, we could probably achieve it here along Reynolds Street. But given that slope, it's going to be really tough.
Well, I would also offer this up as personal observation. If you look at the neighborhood and consider the amount of green spaces and the access that people have to green spaces, given the future plans for the Black Diamond property, and there are no green spaces there, I think it's just, I don't know if we want to fence that in like that.
I think it's probably the largest lawn space in the south side. I think
Definitely.
Shaw Field is, I think they gate that and lock it up, so that's not open.
Well, do we let the current fence open so people can go in there all the time?
Yeah.
I think.
There's no gates.
There's no gate, so, yeah. So, there's maybe we shouldn't be in a rush here. Maybe we should.
I like that
Yeah.
proposal.
Yeah, me too.
So you're saying not to make it part of the bid, no?
Yeah, I think that suggestion's a good one, to take a wait and see, and, because it'll be some time till we can put it up anyway. I mean, I would think. No, maybe not.
I asked one question, why are we spending money down at
Well, at Paxinosa, they have a lot of other lawn space around there. I know, or at least from times that I've been at Paxinosa in the evening, there's people walking and enjoying the yard and the trees there.
I think there's more separation here and all of that stuff than there was at Paxinosa.
Right.
I mean, you're 5 feet away from a bumper.
So, can I ask Kyle this question? Kyle, as far as like gym class and stuff like that, would we want to possibly look at partially fencing
An area.
an area?
I said from day one, I think we need to have this fenced in at some part. I said just because of the safety factor, there's been students this year that I had to chase from the 8-foot fence up the road to Berwick Street. And to me, it's anything that is a deterrent for the kids, that they at least have to walk to an opening to go out, instead of just free for all, walk right out the side and go, I don't care if there's a 12-foot hill or not. When one kid's going to run, they're going to try to run. And I'm not fast, so being able to get the kid, that's around. So I think in some way, something should be fenced in. That's why I always said this, because to me it's, I know it could look like the prison feel. I mean, I get that, but to me, if it's going to make sure kids safe, that's what comes to me. You know, and that's my thought about this all. Like, I just want to make sure that the kids are safe if they're outside with throwing a ball, or a parent's trying to get in and take a kid that maybe a custody issue is happening. I'm just trying to make sure about that. And if it's a 4-foot, whatever, anything that may be a little deterrent may keep them away from going in that.
I agree with you, because I've seen it where the parents come up and they will, you're absolutely right, in custody and try to take the student.
Well, you use an ornamental fence, at least it's a little more aesthetically pleasing, okay, than the chain link. I don't know that 4-foot is any deterrent, to be honest with you, okay, but that's something to be debated. But I think if you go with an ornamental look, I think you're at least better off, if that's the consensus.
I think if you fence the whole thing, or you only do half of it.
I mean, there's not going to be any issue, Randy or Josh, when you start taking down the current building, if you put that fence up. Because I see where the principal's going here at some point. You know, there are some children with some issues that they take off and they got a head start on you.
The thing is, well, the parents have a more sense of security as far as when they're out playing, too.
My thing is, I agree, over there at Cheston, there's not a lot of areas to go. And for those kids, or even for parents to come back and spend time with kids. I don't know how much gets done now.
We don't
I
have
know.
to lock it.
Right, that's my thing, is when we talk about this and we're talking about, that's how I'm taking it, is that we're talking about like locking it in, and I just don't want to see that happen.
Let it open and let, have an arrangement with the police that they come through there at X time every night and they lock the gate so that there's nothing going on after a certain hour.
I don't know how big that will be.
Well, it's
Well, then there's the
police
park
department.
across the street
Yeah.
that I think they police anyway, so.
That's not locked.
If you do a patch, they won't get exactly huge. I still think it should go straight across what you said. And it's really far enough in school that it won't look prison-like.
I'll end with we'll do a better job at showing you some visuals on that.
Yeah.
But I think all the negatives I think are relevant to every school. And it's not something that we're doing at home, or it's not something that's done for us. We're showing like you did that.
Yeah, that never mind yet as well. We don't have property fence.
So, are we okay to revisit this then, and then get the schedule after the building comes in? Is that what
Yes,
Yeah.
another thing.
Maybe we
Because
need to.
that's everything's wide enough for like a fire truck or an ambulance, right?
Yeah.
So what stops a car from going through there?
From here?
Straight in front of the building. Yeah.
Hopefully sanity.
Sanity. She said, what's stops the car from going? She said, hopefully sanity.
But you're going to have to if you're making it that an ambulance or fire truck can drive in, or
Intentional.
do the same.
So it would have to be, if you're talking about fence, it would have to be a gate anyway. It's not really, those are gates.
Yes, those are
On
gates,
either
right.
side.
On
They're
either
not-
side of there.
Yeah, they're not fenced.
Terry, there's not the removable
Bollards.
bollards?
Yeah.
They're not there. They are.
If we took the gate out, they would be there.
Oh, okay.
Right now, there's a gate.
Okay.
Yeah,
So without the gate, there are the removable bollards.
Yeah, but if you have a fire truck, right, you're not going to stick around digging the balance out.
You put the ones in there, you just recess right into the ground.
Oh, okay, by pushing a button, they go down.
Like if you walk through Washington DC, they're all
Right.
for every building.
That's what I was going to ask,
They're
is
still
like
they
that.
stick out of the ground and they drop them if I want to.
So those are there, so,
They will be. There's a gate.
If the fence wasn't there, they would be.
Right.
so if we don't fence them, we still have.
The thing is, you got to put the towers all the way up through there a little bit, instead of people driving just around, you just put them in one area.
Right. Probably put like four.
Pardon?
Probably put like 4 every 6 feet.
Yeah, all the way up through probably near the curb cut up there.
Well, there'll be a curb. There's only a curb recess right here.
Right.
That's it. So we would just put them here.
Really?
Put them here. Put them on the grass. The sidewalk.
Yeah.
Each ballot comes with 3 sections.
And you'd have to do it on both sides, too.
Why would we do that? You got to jump the curb.
Mhm. We've seen that happen already where, the car, somebody didn't have it in gear. We've seen that happen in stores. We've seen it happen in other places where they jump the curb. It happened right here in Forks already, too.
But would they hit
The Ballards?
Okay,
I
so,
think we're talking about 2 different things. So, like we have out front of Palmer Elementary, we put bollards
Right.
every so often. We could put those along the drop-off area for sure.
Yeah.
But the removable ones that drop.
Or only at that one area?
Yes.
Yes.
So fire trucks.
Right.
Okay, so the purpose of this committee is to make a decision as a whole. So if that's the direction, we just need to be clear that we will line the drop-off areas with bollards and have removable bollards at the, or recessed bollards at the walkway area. We just need to make sure that there's consensus so that we don't have to revisit it, or there's no
So we
other
were
discussion
planning
needed.
that before, though, right?
It was a fence before, you know, so you're either looking that you're gonna bid a fence or you're gonna bid the ballards.
We have them up front. Here we had a fence.
So the ballards are curb, ballard, sidewalk, or curb, sidewalk, ballard? That would be stupid. It would be, it's gonna be curb, ballard, sidewalk.
Correct.
Instead of fence, is that what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you almost, back to where you were, John, you almost have to put the fence in to see where the bids are, one or two different ways, or the ballards. So now the choices then come back to ballards or fencing of, you know, two different ways.
I would suggest that the ballards go.
Yeah, right. Ballards are gonna keep the kids
But
from
I would suggest that the ballards go in, because we could always, if we decided ultimately after the school's built that the fence, that we wanted a fence of some sort, we've shown a lot of different configurations here tonight of suggestions, so we could do that still and still have the safety of those being in as well. So
Yeah,
would
I think
that be part of
fence and
these.
bollards are separate issues. You know, the bollards protect from cars jumping the
Right.
curb, whether or not there's a fence or a gate there anyway.
Yeah, I think that they need to be part of the, in my opinion.
Are we going to move off of that? Can we go just one more? I need to ask for clarification on what our engineer so eloquently described as a stubby. The stubby.
The stubby.
Would you point that out as?
I know, I didn't hear the
Stubby.
The stubby fence is this one up here.
There you are.
Okay.
I guess my question is, what is that area, how do you see that, what do you see that looking like, that space that we're fencing in?
I was thinking that. I'm not saying anything else. I was thinking that it would eventually be developed kind of like an ecosystem that's in the courtyard.
A what?
Just like the ecosystem that's in the courtyard today.
Oh,
I was thinking that's what it would eventually be.
yeah,
I was not paying attention.
yeah, right.
That's what, but right now it's just grass.
So it's like an open alcove, will not be any access to it, is that, or
There will be gates.
gates, but beyond that, as far as the building is concerned, you see that as 3 solid brick walls around
Are
it?
there any doors there?
leading out to it?
Yeah, there's just gates.
Randy, is it there's a door on the first floor going out there?
Here, there's a door
Yeah.
here
Oh,
that goes out
There is a door.
and it's right off of the hallway. All right.
So on the top side, you'll see windows, classroom windows.
Yeah. So the windows here, classroom windows. There's a door that goes out from the hallway. Then there's a garage door here because there's a storage room underneath the art classroom. And then there's a gate on the fence that allows access.
Does the garage door lead to
Allows
on the
people-
exterior? Just the
You're
garage.
taking deliveries through there, correct?
I don't know that we.
you just see that as a grassy, just a grassy area, a grass area, a door.
I was thinking it's where we park the lawnmower. Just open the door.
There'll be will there be a covering to it? No.
I mean, inside.
Yeah.
So, so if we were to do any type of ecosystem, access that garage.
Yeah. Depending on what you put it. It was that space that made more sense to leave a basement than finish it. And there's a similar door on this side too that goes into the mechanical room.
Main boiler room.
Main boiler room.
And that was for future access in case you have stuff interrupted, you can do it a lot easier.
Like, how big is that space? So bad. This study area.
I think it's like 22 or 24 feet wide. Maybe. Josh, you look.
We got a visual of the stubby area. I like visuals.
Two angles of the roof. Extend that walkway straight across to go through and open no gates.
So this is the area here. So when we were designing the buildings, the way the grade changes, it made more sense just to make this usable space under here than to fill it in with her.
It actually looks better with the.
So there'll be a fence here, but there's a door that leads to the hallway. Fence will go across.
Thanks.
The door on the other side is the one that has the access to the driveway.
Are we moving along?
Okay. Give us the information you need to go forward.
Okay, so again, our understanding, go ahead.
Our understanding is we're putting bollards in, but we have to.
Bless you.
And just to clarify again, that will be along the entire inner edge of both the parent and the bus drop-off. Correct?
And then the day we're going to ask for a fence and then we're going to decide, or we're not asking?
5 foot.
I think we're going to ask for a fence.
I think what you want to do is an alternate on the fence there.
And then decide, make it so you can decide after
Right.
you see the,
Right.
after you see the building.
There's obviously all different variations.
Exactly, specify in the alternate.
You can specify the pool area to be fenced in, right? And then we can do a change order, always to cut the fence down, always to be a half portion of it, or whatever, to protect where the kids can find.
What's that? They got your son.
I got it. And we'll show you some visuals of it. It's time to make that decision.
Okay, so I think that does it for the Cheston portion. You guys have any other questions on Cheston?
So if we have any other questions on the alternates, when do they have to be back to you again?
2 weeks. Give you 2 weeks. Just so that we have time in the bidding phase, if we do need to make any adjustments to the bid forms, that we can do it and still give them time to adjust their bid accordingly, still get that bid opening date.
Josh, moving on to capital projects.
Okay. All right. Yesterday we had the bid opening for the Forks project with good numbers and, as importantly, good contractors to go along with those numbers. If you were to look at the capital planning initial budget, this project was up at like $9 million. That was before we really had a chance to dive into it to get a scope really identified. I think at the last meeting, I had come back with a number that was more along the lines of like 7.5 million based on the adjusted scope. So I'm happy to say that we're even lower than that with the recommended alternates, and I'll go through those. The bids came in at 5.6 million. The other good thing about this is the contractors that are currently that actually have worked on Paxinosa and Tracy are 3 of the 4 are the low bidder for Forks. So they must have some momentum going, I guess, now. So JBM Mechanical, which is located in Nazareth, and CMG of Easton, right here in Easton. Borough Construction is the low bidder for electrical. They're not so local, they're down, I think, out of Bucks County, but very large outfit, certainly capable of handling a job of this size. We've worked with them on both the general and the mechanical prime contracts. They're a very large company. In this case, they did the electrical. So what we would recommend from the alternate bid listing, based on especially how the numbers came in, we did have an alternate to upgrade from a 20 to a 30-year warranted roof. We would certainly recommend that for an upcharge of just shy of $20,000. Cementitious underlayment, and just to tell you what that is, it's a leveling system that would go onto the existing concrete floor slab for the new floors. We have experienced at both Taxinosa and Tracy the situations with the existing floors where they're in a condition that's not suitable to receive the new flooring material without some additional treatment. So for Forks, we included that in the bid as an alternate. What we did with the language of this alternate is the bidder must hold that price for a period of 90 days. Once we do remove the floor and assess the existing concrete, we still have that time to back that number back out of their bid. So we told them up front, this number is valid. At any point within 90 days, we can say, no, floors are in good condition, we don't need this alternate. They will credit us back that full amount. Okay, so we do recommend taking it at this point. New rubber stair treads, that would be for some of the areas where we weren't necessarily doing any other architectural finishes. Some of them were to the point where borderline that, yeah, they should probably be replaced, so we included that. Again, just where the numbers came in, we think it's a good idea to do it now. The alternate schedule, we haven't touched yet tonight on the schedule and how it relates between the Tracy and the Forks project. I'm certainly happy to explain that. I didn't know if anybody else wanted to jump in and explain it. So if you remember last meeting, we talked about some of the difficulties at Tracy, and ultimately the net effect was we really need to give a 2-week extension from where we were to properly finish the work at Tracy. So that kicked it into a March 16th completion time frame. So initially the plan was to use the middle school space. Once Tracy was done, get those kids out, stick the Forks kids in right away, and proceed with the Forks project. Based on the situations that we had at Tracy, and with the understanding that this is a very tight time frame as far as executing the work, it's essentially a 5-month time frame in order to get them on site in March and finished by August. And understanding that the board was still evaluating the schedule and how to execute the projects moving forward, we had a base bid schedule to start the work in March, finish it in August. We had an alternate schedule that would permit them still to be under contract in March, but to not start the work on site until June. So essentially, the students would remain, or the contractors would not be able to mobilize until June. What that does is it buys us a few months up front of getting them under contract, getting paperwork going as far as submittals, the types of things that need to happen, getting products approved, ordered, so that by the time the students are out in June, a lot of that upfront work is done, things are already being ordered. Without those months, it would be an extremely tight process, and we just don't want to put the district in the position again with Tracy, everybody pulling their hair out, trying to decide what should we do. Is it a wise idea to try to finish it and move the kids in, or does it make more sense to have some breathing room and to extend it? So the alternate schedule, again, would start in June, and it would push the completion out to about the Thanksgiving time frame. It was about November 20th or so. Okay. So again, we wanted to see if there was any pricing impact. There really was not much of a pricing impact. However, again, we think it's a wise idea to allow for that extra time and some breathing room. Okay. And ultimately, the plan there would be that the Palmer, if the Palmer were able to transition, that could happen over the Christmas break. So one set of kids, in early December, and the setup being completed, but then the Palmer move happening over that Christmas break timeframe. So for each contractor, I did select, and again, these are recommendations. You certainly don't have to take the recommended alternates. They're up for discussion, but I did want to give you the recommendations, at least from our perspective. So we did select the alternate schedule for each contractor. That was the only alternate for the plumbing contractor. For the HVAC contractor, we have a base bid equipment being produced by the Train Company. That's equipment that is in a lot of buildings in the district. I think is performing well for Tim and his department, and for the occupants of the building. The alternates were for equipment that was supplied by other vendors: Carrier, Dakin, and Johnson Controls. Okay, again, all reputable companies. But when you look at the numbers, it's actually an upcharge to go with some of those companies, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. So, base bid the Train equipment is great. We don't recommend, paying more for equipment that is an equal. One thing that is worth looking at is the control system. So equipment is one thing, kind of the brains behind it, how it operates. The networking system is sort of another animal. The district, for the most part, has two control vendors. One is Siemens, and the other is Johnson Controls. So Siemens is indicated as a base bid, Johnson Controls as an alternate bid. The low bid contractor with JBM actually is a deduct of $40,000 to go with the Johnson Controls control system. That's certainly an attractive number, I think, to consider approving. The high school, middle school are both Johnson Controls. Other buildings are Siemens, but for $40,000, it's worth considering. And again, the alternate schedule for the mechanical was no cost change. On the electrical side, with Borough, there was an add alternate for the fire alarm system by Simplex. I mentioned controls, and it's kind of integrated to one or two vendors. In the case of fire alarms throughout the district, there is a vendor, Simplex, who pretty much handles the entire district. I think it makes Tim's life much more simple as far as having one point of contact that can address the systems district-wide. And for what I would consider a nominal upcharge of $9,000, I think keeping a single vendor throughout the district to maintain the fire alarm systems moving forward makes a lot of sense. So with those recommended alternates, again, we're at about $5.6 million for construction costs.
Questions for Josh?
So,
wait for 1 year away. On your Siemens versus the Johnson Controls, it's $40,000 savings. But Tim, any difference in how they react, what kind of support you get, what service is like, getting a part is like, or anything? Because all of a sudden, over X amount of years, we can spend more than $40,000 easily.
Right. Well, as Josh said, right now we're looking to replace the Johnson Controls system at the high school. He's going to get to that here shortly. But we do have Johnson Controls at the campus presently. The rest of our schools, the newer buildings, we do have Siemens in. I am quite surprised since that Siemens did come in with a better price. That we can save $40,000 if we go with Johnson Controls. And speaking to our gentleman in the HVAC department, it really wouldn't matter to them whether it was Siemens or Johnson Controls. They're both going to do the same thing. The graphics are very similar. And I think that we need to do this to keep the bidding more competitive. I think that some of our bidders are getting a little comfortable on what companies we're going with, and I don't think we're getting real good prices. So I think it's time that we look to take someone other than who we've been using, and we have some other projects coming up upon us here, and if we can certainly save $40,000 here, who knows what we can save down the line. So I think it's important for that, Bob, and the fact that the systems aren't that much different than each other.
As long as everything else is equal, yeah.
No, I think this is a wise thing to do.
Okay.
So again, since we do want to get these guys under contract as soon as possible, this will be a board action item for the next meeting as far as those parent low bidders. Okay? Yep.
For next week. Everybody's okay with that? Victoria goes on the agenda.
Okay, so some of the other upcoming summer projects, for March approval, we still have the high school chilled water plant, which is the replacement of the chillers, the cooling sort of main plant that branches out to the building. And also the classroom technology improvements for Shawnee in March. And just as a reminder, that's to improve the projector setup and the instructional technology in those classrooms. So with those two scheduled for the summer, that would bring the renovated classroom, so to speak, up to sort of the same level. And what we're shooting for also for the Palmer and the Cheston projects. Okay. Trailing that by 1 month, obviously we talked about the Cheston approval. We did have 3 other items which are a bit more complicated and just required some more design work up front. The high school data network upgrades, the high school HVAC controls. So we just talked about the controls at Forks. The high school this summer is slated to get a new control system. Right now it's, I won't say antiquated, but it's a dated pneumatic control system which is slated to be replaced with completely electronic activation. So that's in conjunction with the chiller replacement will really refresh the HVAC controls at the high school. And then also the middle school, that exterior ramp, which was a sort of late to the game addition. We're still in the process of preparing what needs to happen to repair and to protect that ramp at the exterior. So that will be an April approval. Those obviously would be summer projects.
You really believe that exterior ramp should be a priority? Is that what you're taking?
We do. We've done some more investigations as to the condition of the structure. The structure underneath that, there's an exterior patio at the top, and yeah, that's something that is going to need repairs in the near future. I think now would be the time.
Is it not possible to put a different type of flooring on that?
Well, we are looking at a new surface with a new waterproofing system. The problem also that we're tackling is the condition, again, of the structural components beneath that are holding up that level to begin with. So there's some work that needs to happen to reinforce or to repair some of the steel components that are holding that structure up. And that's just due to the water and over the years with that membrane breaking down, surface water that is corroding and damaging some of those structural components.
Mr. Reinhardt, we spent about 2 hours yesterday with 2 representatives from Dewey, a structural and a concrete specialist, looking at that ramp, and we looked at the underside of how much rust and rot is happening from water seepage through there since it was Shawnee Intermediate School. So I think they're going to put together 2 different proposals. One would be to do a new coating on that ramp, and we may get another 10 or 15 years out of it, or they're saying it has a roof deck and has 6 inches of concrete, and then there's an old membrane, and there's another additional layer of concrete, and then the membrane we have on. But some of the problems is that there's not a lot of pitch in that. When we did the renovation at that school, we added some drains that we hoped would help that, but it's almost level into the saddle of the door. So when you have a heavy rain, some of that water is actually running into the door frame area and then leaking down through. So I think when we talked yesterday, we're going to come up with 2 different ideas. One would be more costly than the other, and we can make a decision at that point how we wanted to go, or if we wanted to wait. But it looks pretty bad underneath if you looked at the structural steel that supports that ramp.
So the redesign to fix that is going to alleviate the future structural
Right, so
damage.
what they were saying is if we can take that first layer of concrete off and then maybe put a new membrane and get enough pitch on the next layer of concrete so that that water would shed away from the building and down the ramp versus seeping in where it meets the building structure. And that's something they're working on. We just met yesterday and spent a few hours up there looking through everything, actually looking into the band room area to make sure none of that water was actually getting in between the walls in those areas, pretty much defining where it's actually penetrating the building. And then there is some, the other thing is there is some damage to the EAFS soffit underneath. If you went up there, some of that has collapsed because of water penetrating through on the exterior.
Okay, so one final slide that I'd like to share with everybody. Last meeting, Mr. Fainall had mentioned it'd be nice to see sort of a side-by-side comparison for the capital projects that we've executed, starting with Paxinosa, where we were, how do we do as far as budgeting and actual. As you can see, very good shape from the initial budgets to the actual. I think that's a result of many factors, meeting with the committee and the administration and making sure that everybody was clear with what the budget was and what the scope was, and not going and not doing more than was absolutely necessary. So you can see, we've come on in under the projected or the at least allocated budget. Now, yeah, some of that probably was maybe a little bit too high to begin with, but needless to say, it's a constant monitoring of what those numbers are and how can we make sure that we're staying at or below those numbers.
Well, I want to be, let's clarify that because it got reported wrong in the paper. These are not cash savings. This is a result of less money we have to borrow for the future projects. It got reported that, what are we going to do with the savings? Let's add things. This is not actual cash dollars that we're saving. We're just not going to borrow them as we come under budget.
Can we redirect our conversation back to the Tracy Forks movement of students and the completion of their completion dates? Melissa, could you simply state, if you would, the changes that now must occur in our schedule?
So, as Josh said, we're looking at, because of the extension on the Tracy project and a lot of conversations that we've had, in order to make sure we're making the best decision ultimately for our students, we are going to keep Tracy for the remainder of this school year in the middle school space, which then allows us to start the Forks project in June. It will be a June through November project. So the students at Forks Elementary School, instead of going to the middle school campus during this school year, they will start next school year at the middle school campus, and then they will return back to Forks Elementary School within that November-December timeframe. Likely December, but again, that's something that we'll continue to assess as we get closer. What we've learned with this project is that we want to make sure that we're continually assessing that, and that we're able to give a concrete date. And then that would open the middle school campus up for us at that point to be able to bring the Palmer Elementary School students in. So Palmer Elementary School students will not start next year at the middle school campus. It will be the Forks students.
The plan would be, hopefully, homework kids move obviously right after
Correct.
first week of the year, right into January 2nd.
As soon as we can, we're going to move the Palmer students in because the conditions at the middle school are very pleasant, and it's as the warm weather comes, it'll be far better for them to be in the middle school than sitting in Palmer, because we can't control that with that no air conditioning. So
Well, listen, Josh, how does the schedule work as far as, Josh, you talk about June. Do they understand it could be June 10th or June 12th or whatever before they begin? And is that roughly when the students would be out of there? And the next question after that, if they're out June 10th, you look at Tim and say, okay, here we go again.
We were able to move out of Tracy in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. So I'm thinking, we're not really moving any furniture out of Palmer. We're going to move contents. There may be some furniture that we may want to take, but the majority of it is content. So I'm saying from the last day of school, I would be very comfortable in saying, Bob, that we can complete that in 2 weeks. And I would say that we may be able to do it even less than that.
Allow yourself the time. So right now we're looking at the last day of school for the elementary, and the teachers there will be.
Teachers is June 7th.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Teachers is June 7th, students is June 6th.
And that's accounting for the makeup day.
That is, yeah.
So roughly a little bit after the middle of the month. And the contractors are all on board with that.
Yeah, that's part of
Yeah.
the schedule. Yeah.
They're still under contract earlier than that so that they can go through the submittals and the ordering so that they are able to hit the ground running as soon as we're vacant.
They can start staging as early as they want.
Yep.
Hey, Josh, a quick clarification, or maybe I missed something. On your sheet for the Forks bid results, you got 5.6 million. And on your capital project summary, you're looking at 6 million.
For Paxinosa was the only one that was strictly construction costs. There were a lot of soft costs.
Okay.
The other ones included some of the professional fees and permanent costs, that type of thing.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. Are we done then with the high school roof? Are all sections of the high school roof done?
The latest project was like phase 4, and that was the last. But in 15 years we'll start all over.
That was the first time we started the roof. That's why I'm just asking. That was.
Well, the next big roof project you will look at will be the middle school campus. It's not going to be real soon, but that'll be the biggest one coming.
Hey, are there other questions for Josh or anybody this evening? We pretty well covered the agenda. I'll say thank you for tonight. It's great when everybody can be here and hear it all together. So with that, George, I think we're.
Thank you to the board for taking your time to attend this meeting. Thanks to the staff and to our professionals for coming out in the evening. I agree with Mr. Fano and other board members wanted to see these meetings, so they're nice and there could be more engagement by the board. And I think everybody's hearing the same message is really what it comes down to now. So thank you very much.